Chris, do you remember your first ever lesson that you taught?
No. What about you? No, I do.
How did it go?
Well, it's a blur. It's a long time. Well, it's quite a long time ago. I'm not that old. And I was very nervous, so it's a bit of a blur. But what I do remember was I was a group class, face to face.
Where were you?
In Newcastle, in the northeast of England, yeah. And I was teaching its multilingual class. You were all absolutely lovely, I'm sure. But I was very nervous, and I was afraid of getting too close to them. It sounds crazy. Physically,
yeah, right.
yes. So they're in this, what we call a horseshoe, this semicircle. And I'd set this activity up that they were doing. And I was sort of like this, sort of watching to see.
From the front
the front, like a metre or two away from everyone. So I couldn't see what they were writing. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't want to get too close. I think I said, "Is everybody okay?" And there was no response. So when it came to checking the answers to the task, it was very clear that half of them hadn't known actually what the task was and what they were meant to do, and they'd done something completely different.
And you hadn't picked up on that because you'd stayed
Exactly,
stayed
they hadn't
back.
been able to get in there and fix it. The other half had done the task, but they hadn't done it correctly. They got the answers wrong, and I'd not been able to support them there.
So what was your takeaway from that car crash experience?
Students don't bite.
They don't bite.
Don't be afraid of them. They're human. Yeah, and that made a big difference. The second lesson I got in there. What about you?
Yeah, so I actually remember my first ever lesson very clearly, and it was also quite a baptism of fire. I was in Japan, and it was I was in this little language school just on the outskirts of Tokyo, and I think the receptionist at the school told me, okay, your first group, it's a group of long-term students. It was 5 Japanese women. They were all good friends, like massive gossipers. Mm-hmm. They were long-term customers of the school. They'd known the last 10 teachers before me, so no pressure or anything. And so I was like, okay, well, it sounds like it could be. Doesn't sound too bad. I mean, it could be fun. But because it had been almost a year since I'd done my teacher training, and I was really keen to teach. To teach them stuff. I remember my trainer had said to me when I finished my training course, he said, "Ollie, remember, whenever you meet your first group of new students, remember, teach them something." Now, I took this a bit too far, and I just absolutely crammed my lesson full of stuff. I wanted to blow them away with the quality of my teaching. Superstar, new teacher, all of that. And so the students turned up. I could sort of hear them gossiping in the corridor before they arrived, and sure enough, and they were lovely, like loveliest student. You couldn't wish for a better first ever lesson group of students. And so they came in, and I could see that they really wanted to get to know me, but I was like, okay, I have to teach a lesson. So there was like a very minimal chit chat at the beginning, yes. And I dived straight into, right, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And I remember there was one moment where I set a little reading activity. I gave them something from the textbook, because I can read this. And I remembered a kind of TEFL trick from my training, which was if you time an activity, give students a time limit, it can help them to focus on the task.
It pushes them to...
It helps, just, galvanizes them a little bit.
Yeah.
Of course, a technique like that, you have to use that quite...
Sparingly.
You have to set it up properly. They absolutely have to make sure they know what they're doing before you start. But I didn't really understand that at the time. So I said, right, we're going to read this. You've got 60 seconds, go. And they were just completely flustered, went into a panic because they'd never done anything like this before. And they played along. They did as best that they could. Anyway, the lesson finished, and Yorko, one of the students, came up to me at the end and said, "Ollie, you're very nice, but I just want to let you know that we are old and we learn very slowly. So." Please be gentle with us, or words to that effect. And then, so they left, and the receptionist told me afterwards, and she said, I think they were a bit freaked out by the intensity of the lesson.
So what did you learn from that?
The importance of building rapport. You've got to spend time with new students to get to know them, and for them to get to know you as well. Because if you, think of it this way, if you teach somebody loads of stuff, but they don't feel like they know you, they can take it or leave it. But if they really know you and you only teach them a little bit, they want more.
And they trust you.
They trust you. And so if I were to do that again, I would have planned 10% as much as I did, spent the first half of the lesson just getting to know you, because I would be meeting them for every week from then on, as it turned out, for over a year. So really, to spend a good amount of the first lesson getting to know them is timed very well.
And them getting to
spent.
know you as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've all got our horror
Yeah.
stories
But
from our first ever lesson.
they're human beings and interact with them.
And so are we, and we need to kind of give that space for that to happen. Whether it's you getting up close to your students or me not
Giving them time, giving them space.
spraying English at them from all angles. But it's a learning experience.
Definitely.